I have been working on a new translation of the Bhagavad Gita. There are many translations available today in English. This is an English translation. What is unique about the translation I'm doing is it really focuses on the Sanskrit. And if you want to learn Sanskrit, this version of the Gita is really going to help you to do that. It has the Devanagari, it has the Sanskrit letters, it has the Roman transliteration of the Devanagari, it has word by word English translation with multiple meanings for each word, and then it has the translation with the Sanskrit next to the translation, so you can really learn the Sanskrit a little bit better that way. And I'm trying to be as faithful to what it actually says as possible, without being, keeping, a modern English translation, but also staying as close and as true to the Sanskrit meanings as possible. And you might say, well, how is that even possible? Because everyone has a different translation. Well, that may be so, and maybe the world does not need another translation of the Bhagavad Gita. I don't know. But I would just say that, if anything, this was an exercise for myself to really engage with the Bhagavad Gita, and I'm glad that I have done that. And I have been focusing a little bit on the word purusha, and that's what we did yesterday. I think we did chapter 10, verse 15. And the question is, how do you translate this word purusha? And what we found yesterday was about a third of the people did not translate purusha, a third did translate purusha as person, and a third translated it as being or spirit. Like supreme being, puruṣottama, purusha uttama would be the supreme spirit or the supreme being. And that was what I had, right? Supreme spirit for purusha. Why is this important? Well, it gets to the issue of is God ultimately, is the ultimate supreme being, you could say, a person? And it could be. I don't know if anyone really has an answer to this. I think partly the question is, what was intended by the author of the text? Was it intended that it be read as like a person? And then we could ask what a person is. What is a person, right? Was it intended that it be read, purusha be read as being or a spirit? Well, how is that meant to be read or understood? So that's a very fundamental question. And that's my main concern here with what we're doing today, but I have some other questions. So we're looking at 18 different translations. I'm going to start with my own. This is chapter 8, verse 8. So here we go. Abhyāsa-yoga-yuktena chetasā nānya-gāminā paramam puruṣham divyam paramam puruṣham divyam yāti pārthānuchintayan. Okay, so let's go through it. That's the Sanskrit. Let's go through it line by line. Abhyāsa-yoga-yuktena, yoked by the practice of yoga, chetasā nānya-gāminā, with the mind chetasā, not turning to anything else. Anya-gāminā. Not anya, other, gāminā, going or turning. One goes to the divine supreme spirit. Maybe we could say one goes to, maybe even better, one attains, because the goes is already used. So let's say one attains to the divine supreme spirit. Parama purusha divya yāti. Yāti is attains here or goes. Parama is paramount or supreme. Divya is divine, right? Div is where we get the word divine in English. And purusha, some people say purusha is where we get the word person. I think that's just a little bit debatable. And I translate it as spirit here. O Arjuna, son of Pritha. Partha is a nickname or epithet of Arjuna. Partha means son of Pritha, so O Arjuna, son of Pritha. Meditating on him, anuchintayan. So I have meditating, and most people have meditating for anuchintayan. And it doesn't say on him, actually. So that's something I might want to change. I want to be as exact as possible. The other question is, how do you translate yukta, right? A lot of people translate it as disciplined. I translate it a lot of times as yoked, because it's really cognate with the word in English, which is yoke. Yoke meaning discipline, right? It also means yoke means to join together, and it also means to practice or a discipline. For example, Jesus in the Gospels, I believe in the King James Gospels. King James version of the Gospels. Jesus says, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light." What does he mean by yoke? I think he means there, my discipline or my teaching is easy and my burden is light, something like that. Okay, so yoga yukta. What is yoga yukta? Disciplined in yoga. Abhyāsa is usually translated as practice. Yoked by the practice of yoga, or yoked to the practice of yoga. Let's put yoked to the practice of yoga with the mind not turning to anything else. One attains to the divine supreme spirit. O Arjuna, son of Pritha, meditating on him. Okay, so let's see what Winthrop Sargent, that was my translation. I changed it a little as we were talking. Winthrop Sargent, with the mind disciplined by the practice of yoga, which does not turn to anything else, to the divine supreme spirit he goes, Arjuna, meditating on him. So he has disciplined, right, for yukta. With the mind chetasā, to the divine supreme spirit. So he has the same, right? Divine supreme spirit, meditating on it. Okay, so he has divine supreme spirit for paramam purusha divya. That's really what I want to focus on mainly here. All right, so that's Winthrop Sargent. So Sri Swami Atmananda has, through practice of constant contemplation, so he has contemplation. If one is linked with the Supreme Being, so he has Supreme Being for parama purusha divya. So he translates being here as purusha as being, and his mind does not go anywhere else. He attains him. Okay, so he has contemplation instead of meditation. Or maybe he translates abhyāsa as contemplation. I'm not sure. In any case, we'll go on. Jayadayal Goyanka Gita Press has Arjuna, he who with his mind disciplined through yoga in the form of practice of meditation, so he has meditation, and thinking of nothing else, is constantly engaged in contemplation of God. That's anuchintayan. I guess he translates anuchintayan as contemplation. Attains the supremely effulgent divine purusha. And then he has in parentheses God. So he doesn't translate purusha, except in parentheses he has the word God. So he has God twice here. Is constantly engaged in contemplation of God. Doesn't actually have God elsewhere in this, so I don't know where he gets that. But attains the supremely effulgent divine purusha. So the problem with what he's doing here is that it makes it seem as if God is separate from this effulgent divine purusha. But then he has in parentheses God, because I think he wants to correct that and say, no, we're talking about God. We're not talking about something separate. So why doesn't he translate purusha though? It's a question. And we saw this in the other verse that we looked at. Some people were not translating purusha, because it's so difficult to translate. How do you translate that? Let's go on. Srila Prabhupada, who, depending on who you ask, has either the best translation or the most tendentious translation of any of them. I'm not going to weigh in on that right now. I can only say that I think we've seen that there's some problems with his translation. And this is maybe the most famous translation, the one that's out there the most in the world. How many copies? Probably millions of copies of his translation by this time. It'd be interesting to see. I should look up, what the population of Hare Krishnas in the world is. I'll do that for next time. But the Hare Krishna movement is all over the world. So someone wrote me on Facebook, because I wrote about my translation on Facebook, and I mentioned that I'm publishing this translation, and someone from the Hare Krishna movement wrote to me kind of criticizing, other translations, including my own, I guess. And what I said was that just as Krishna has many names in the Gita, and Arjuna has many names, God also has many names. The names are all pointing to the same thing, just like all the names of Krishna are pointing to the same guy, right? All the names of Arjuna are pointing to the same guy. All the different names of God are just aspects of the one being, right? Why are we making a separation? And that's and maybe you can, maybe there is a separation. That's where you could, say that this is dualistic. Maybe the Gita is getting at a dualistic understanding. I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I may weigh in on that later, but right now I'm don't have a good answer. So anyway, Srila Prabhupada is he who meditates. So he meditates on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, Supreme Personality. Now, I can understand person, but where does the personality come in? Why would he translate Purusha as personality? And isn't that confusing for a lot of people who think of a personality as like an egoic personality, right? So that's that alone, and he's the only one that has that, I think. And then you could say the Godhead. Where does he get the Godhead? That is also, it sounds good, but it's not there in the Sanskrit, right? And it's a little bit eccentric. Maybe eccentric's not the right word, but it's a little. It's using a certain poetic license, maybe, right? to put it as charitably as I can. So he who meditates on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path. Is that even in there? Undeviated from the path. Yeah, mind not turning to anything else. Let's see. I think that's an addition. I think he's adding that extra thing. He, O Partha, Arjuna, is sure to reach me. There's nothing about being sure there either. So I'm being a little hard on him, but I think in all fairness, it's not the best translation. It's unless he knows something that no one else knows, So let's just leave that up in the air, because I don't want to make any claim that I can't really back up without actually looking into it, doing due diligence on this. But let's look at Jeffrey Armstrong, Kavindra Rishi. He has a very good translation. It's a new translation, and he is from this tradition. He's in this tradition, I believe, from what I understand. He's part of the, this Hare Krishna. Maybe not exactly. I don't know if he considers himself to be a Hare Krishna, but he's in that lineage, as I understand it. So he translates this as one who is constantly disciplined in yogic practices, meditating upon me as the parama puruṣha, and then he has, in quotes, supreme and ultimate person. So he has person, not personality. He has supreme and ultimate person. I don't even know why you need to have both of those. For parama, I would say paramount. Paramount is a good word. Why not paramount for parama? But supreme is what most people use. Most people use supreme for parama. So one who is constantly disciplined in yogic practices. It doesn't say practices, it says practice. But he, little poetic license, meditating upon me as the parama puruṣha, right? Supreme and ultimate person. So he has meditating, whose thoughts do not wander to anything else, comes directly to me. He added the directly there, I believe. Right? He added directly. So that was an addition. Anyway, he doesn't go by what Srila Prabhupada did, right? He parts ways to a certain degree there. Ramanuja has constantly meditating with a mind made steadfast by habitual practice. So he has steadfast for yukta, right? Instead of yoked or disciplined. Without thinking of anything else, okay, that's good. One reaches, good, the divine supreme being, O Arjuna. So he has being for puruṣha, right? He just has being. He doesn't have person. He doesn't have spirit. He uses being. All right, that's interesting. Okay, because that's Ramanuja. I don't know if this is the real Ramanuja, but we'll go on. Parama Karuna Devi, the one woman that I've been using her translation, she has a very good one. I'm sure there are other women that have done translations of the Gita. I'm not aware of those. But Barbara Stoller-Miller did a version. I don't have hers, and I'm sure there's plenty of others done by women. But okay, O son of Pritha, Arjuna, by engaging in the practice of yoga with a focused consciousness, and then in parentheses she has, that does not deviate from the object of meditation. So she has the idea that this is talking about meditation. One attains that supreme being, okay, being on whom she or he has been meditating. So she makes it she makes it gender neutral here, or gender inclusive. Okay. Focusing on meditation, right? And she uses the word being for puruṣha, which I think is interesting. Okay, so far it's kind of mixed. We've seen person, we've seen personality for puruṣha, but we've also seen being and spirit. Eknadeswara, let's see what he says. He has a very good translation. When you make your mind one-pointed through regular practice of meditation, you will find the supreme glory of the Lord. This is one case where I don't think, okay, he's Eknadeswaran, he has a great translation. I just don't think this is, for me personally, there's person right there. For me personally, I would rather have what is the verse saying more close to what it's actually saying, right? Rather than having more of a kind of a paraphrase. This is like a paraphrase. Where does he get glory? Lord is the word that's usually used for, like, Ishvara is often translated as Lord. Where does he get glory? Maybe divya, the word divya is glory for him. Yeah, it's a paraphrase. It's not bad, it's not bad. He made it very simple. He simplified it, right? it's just a little bit not exact, not completely faithful to the actual wording. Swami Shivananda. With the mind not moving towards any other thing, okay, that's made steadfast, so that's yukta, by the method of habitual meditation, and constantly meditating, one goes to the Supreme Person, right, the resplendent, O Arjuna. So he has resplendent too for divya, whereas Eknana has glory. So some people are understanding this divya as meaning like shining, right? It's a shining thing, right? It's a glorious or resplendent. Okay, that's good. That's fine. Most everyone sees it as talking about meditation, meditating on, having a mind that is focused, that does not go anywhere else, is one-pointed or does not deviate. Bhagavad Gita 8.8 has, with the mind not moving towards any other thing, made steadfast, yukta, through the practice of habitual meditation and constantly meditating, one goes to the Supreme Person, the resplendent, O Arjuna. So this is definitely using Shivananda, right? This is exactly Shivananda. I don't know if we should even include this anymore because it's basically just repeating Shivananda's translation. Radhakrishnan. He who meditates on the Supreme Person with his thought attuned by constant practice and not wandering after anything else, he, O Partha Arjuna, reaches the person supreme and divine. So he says it twice there, right? And maybe you can use that, parama purusha divya twice. It's possible that you can use that twice in translating this. So I leave that as an open question. And he translates purusha as person. He translates divya as divine. I'm going to go quickly now because my battery might die here. All right, going on. With practice, O Partha, when you constantly engage the mind in remembering me, the supreme divine personality. Okay, so Mukundananda has personality too, without deviating. This is similar. So he's probably using Srila Prabhupada. You will certainly attain me. He was probably using Prabhupada, I would think, in translating this. Let's see what Prabhupada had. Yeah, it's very similar. He's probably using Prabhupada in that translation. B.G. Narsingha has, O Partha, one who practices yoga and focuses his mind without straying from the path and meditates upon the divine supreme person certainly achieves him. Okay, it's similar also to Mukundananda, but he uses person instead of personality. He might have also been using Srila Prabhupada. Sri Purohit Swami. He whose mind does not wander, who is engaged in constant meditation, attains the Supreme Spirit. So he uses spirit. So, yay. I'm in good company. At least one other person had that. Winthrop Sargent had spirit too. Okay, so 3 people now have had spirit. Maybe one other person I forget now. So Purohit Swami also has spirit. Swami Tadatmananda, through the practice of yoga with the mind that never wanders, the supreme divine being, so he has being, one reaches by meditating on it. Okay? Is being. Let's just go on. Parth, O Parth, endowed with a bhakti in the form of practice of jap, of nam, of the Supreme God, that is engrossed in the worship of the Supreme Complete God, with undeviating mind, attention, constantly thinking of God, a devotee, Supreme Divine God, that is only Supreme God goes to. I think I took the wrong part of it. I didn't take the... Let me see if I can find it real quick. Now let's forget it. Let's see. Can I find it quickly? Mukundananda. So, no, that's supremeknowledge.org. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He has supreme God, right? He has supreme God. Puruṣhaṁ. Okay, the rest of it is pretty much, the same as what we've been talking about. Finally, we have Sir Edwin Arnold. All come who cleave with never wavering will of firmest faith, owning none other gods, all come to me, the uttermost, Purusha, holiest. So he doesn't translate Purusha there, but he indicates that this Purusha is Krishna, right? Krishna is this Purusha, this paramam Purusha divya. And I think that's really the general gist of this, is that Krishna is talking about himself, right? His divine form, his ultimate form, right? So let's see. Let's read it again. Abhyāsa-yoga-yuktena chetasā nānya-gāminā paramam puruṣham divyam yāti pārthānuchintayan. Yoked to the practice of yoga, yoked by the practice of yoga, I changed it again. Abhyāsa-yoga-yuktena, with the mind chetasā, not turning to anything else, nānya-gāminā, one attains to the divine supreme spirit, paramam purusha divya yāti. O Arjuna, son of Pritha, partha, meditating on him, anuchintayan. Now, the problem with my translation is it makes it sound as if Krishna is somehow separate from this supreme being. So that's a little problematic too. Some of these make it sound as if this, like that last one that we read, that Sir Edwin Arnold was good, even though he did a very free poetic translation. He says, all come to me, the uttermost Purusha, holiest. And that's good, actually, because we don't want to think necessarily that this is talking about something other than Krishna. Right? Krishna is talking about himself, I would think, right? He's talking about it in the third person. Or, but he's in a body at this point. He's talking as a friend to Arjuna, as a friend and counselor. So in a sense, he's talking about his divine self in the third person, like not like this is me, but this is me, but this is also at this moment, because I'm in a body and I'm a person right now, it's not me. So you can understand it in that way, right? That Krishna is talking about himself, but he's not talking about himself, and he's also saying that this is you as well to Arjuna. This is me, but this is also you. Although some people would quibble with that and say, no, this is not. Right? There's still separation between Arjuna and all of us and God. Like this, we're not God. We are separate from God. That's where we need to find some verses. We'll talk about some verses where it seems that Krishna might be pointing to a non-dual truth. And then obviously we want to look at verses where Krishna seems to be talking about a dual reality, like that God is separate from the, Brahman and Atman are not the same. Or maybe Brahman and Atman are the same, but Krishna and the Atman are not the same. So that's a separate issue. But I hope this was helpful in trying to make sense of this. If anyone is actually listening, and I'm not just doing this for my own health and to kind of talk this out a little bit. So thank you for letting me do that. And if you listened, I appreciate it. And please feel free to leave a comment, or message, or a question, or a thought, or any kind of feedback would be most welcome. And until next time, Hari Om Tat Sat.